Tomorrow, she will have to teach her first class. She wanted to be a teacher, to feel confident, and to let the kids know she's to be respected. Will she be able to connect with the students? In these challenging times, in an age of technology, when the triumphs of reason create an acute lack of feeling, she was lucky enough to get a job at one of the best schools in the city. The staff is quite large, 35 people. There are only two men, the principal and the gym teacher. Jacqueline will be helping the children learn French. She had a busy next day. Not only did she have to introduce herself to every class, but she also had to teach a class to her kids. They were shocked to have such a young teacher. "Why did you become a teacher?" asked a high school student, a pretty brown girl with a short haircut. "You have such an interesting appearance. You could even star in movies. And you want to teach children." She grinned. Jacqueline blushed thickly, tried to hide her embarrassment, but then suddenly confessed sincerely. "And I wanted to become an artist and shine in the movies, but it didn't work out." The girl was silent and went to the window. She watched the wind whirling over the ground, playing with dry yellow leaves. It's not fame that makes one happy. Or fame, then you have different destiny. "Don't worry," rose from behind the desk, a handsome boy in a perfectly ironed white shirt and classic pants. "It's cool when a girl with Hollywood teach French looks. I, for one, will study this language even harder. I solemnly promise." "So please introduce yourself," Jacqueline addressed him. "So young, but you know how to cheer a man up. What's your name?" "Thomas Clark." The boy smiled. "Nice to meet you." "Nice to meet you too." "Thank you very much. Have a seat." Jacqueline returned to the blackboard. "You told the whole truth about yourself. You broke the entire social distance. Maybe that's good a thing. For such a beautiful girl, it's acceptable," said the brunette from the last desk. By his clothes and manners of holding it, it is evident that he was a confident man. Living by other people's standards is boring, but breaking them is interesting, he said with a squint. "I agree," Jacqueline smiled. "You can get so caught up in it that you lose your identity. It's also dangerous because when you look back at the stamps of society, you can end up being perfect for others, to merge with the role one is trying on, to fuse with it. No, don't laugh, guys, it's happened. Marilyn Monroe and more. And you look just like her. Has anyone ever told you that?" Clark interviewed. "Thank you, but only a little." "I agree with Thomas," the student from the last desk said. "You're very feminine, open, and most likely vulnerable. However, you've made me very uncomfortable." Jacqueline looked at the young man questioningly. "How shall I address you?" "Mr. Ford," the older man said, straightening up and shaking his thick hair. "Peter Ford." Jacqueline took a closer look at him and marveled at his appearance. He was very tall, probably 5 feet, well built. He went to the gym all the time. His shirt sleeves were carelessly rolled up, allowing me to see his muscular, strong arms. His facial features were very bright and expressive. The enormous chrome wing-colored eyes are framed by thick black lashes, a sharp and straight nose with nostrils, beautiful shaped, sensual lips, and a thin, oval face. A delicate, youthful blush played on her cheeks. Filigree cut beard and mustache made his image mysterious and stylish. "Very good. Sit down," she said. "But let's remember that we are all in class, and our communication is formal. Of course, I agree that you are on an age when it can be reduced a few times with humor and philosophical digressions, but let's remember the main thing about the purpose of our training." Jacqueline Bowden began the lesson. The high school students discussed the young French woman for a long time. Some of the girls enviously criticized her and found imaginary flaws. Someone sincerely admired her intelligence and beauty, but on the boys, she made a favorable impression. And they did not even try to contradict such a pretty teacher. The boys were trying to become handsome for her in every possible way. They even competed with each other for her attention. This is where Clark and Ford got into an irreconcilable fight. These were guys from wealthy families who always fought for the attention of the first beauties of the school. Time passed, and Jacqueline quickly settled in her role. All was well if a genuine love for the handsome Peter had not originated in a young girl's heart. His parents owned a hotel in the coast and spoiled the guy. At times, Jacqueline could barely contain the impulses of her feelings for him. The boy's deep eyes and intelligence attracted her like a magnet. She felt her heart beating harder when he entered the classroom, and every time they met eyes, the world around them ceased to exist. Now and then, she would furtively glance at Ford and allow herself to fantasize unnecessarily. Therefore, the girl promised herself that as long as Peter was her student, she would treat him respectfully and maintain the necessary distance. The guy, by Jacqueline's behavior, guessed her feelings and was very flattered by it. A grown woman longed for him and tried to restrain herself. At the end of the school, he decided to take her seriously. After awarding certificates, Peter began to live to the fullest and realized his most daring fantasies. Then, one day, at a party at a friend's house, he met Jacqueline, a former teacher, with exquisite taste and mysterious charm. Their passion erupted instantly, like an explosion, and soon, their romance became the main secret of high society, shrouded in an aura of the forbidden and mysterious. Blinded by his passion for the young teacher, Peter convinced his parents to allow him to marry her despite her humble origins. He plunged headlong into a relationship with the girl, gaining experience in intimacy and receiving bodily pleasures. However, the years passed, and over time his feelings colored. Jacqueline, who for so long was the center of attention of a young man, became indifferent. He now often disappeared from home, leaving her alone. Even when Peter saw his wife next to members of the more vigorous sex, in his heart he was not jealous. Jacqueline had become for him a passing phase. The woman, from such dislike of spouse, fell into deep depression. She immediately somehow aged the loss of a lot of weight. She stopped eating and taking care of herself. Jacqueline walked around the Ford mansion all day, hairy, in pajamas, and with tears. Eventually, Peter had had enough and took her to the country house, leaving her alone in the care of a housekeeper. Probably everyone would have forgotten about Jacqueline, for she had no relatives. She would have been an orphan without Thomas Clark, whose feelings were hidden from everyone. He watched the life of his beloved as if she were a star in the sky of his world. Guy carefully preserves every moment she shares with him, even as Peter's wife. While maintaining respect for their relationship, he never crossed the line. Still, his heart couldn't deny the warmth it felt when he rarely saw her. Even though Thomas wasn't part of her daily life, he felt like the invisible guardian of her smile, putting his love into quiet wishes of happiness from a distance. Peter Ford knew of his relationship with Jacqueline, and the subject was often an occasion for mockery. Once at a party to which a classmate had invited him, the boy declared, "Hey Thomas, do you want Jacqueline for yourself? I will give her to you, but you will have to buy it with the country house from me." Clark stood dumbfounded and couldn't understand how his conscience allowed Peter to say such a thing. Their friends were laughing, unaware of Thomas' true feelings. Who needs her? She turned herself into an old woman when she was young. The house is still lovely, and Jacqueline is an unnecessary element. Yes, she will die soon. She's not much longer. She hasn't eaten for a week. I'll buy this house from you, along with her, Clark said sternly. And a week later, the deal was done. Thomas asked for her to start divorce proceeding and move into the new cottage. It was a one-story building. Its exterior glass walls let in sunlight in. There were narrow, paved paths through the grounds, with small alpine slides in between. There was a separate house for the staff, and next to it was a recreation area, a small wooden gazebo with 12 seats, a barbecue, and several lawn chairs under a large yellow umbrella. Thomas hadn't seen Jacqueline in a long time, and her appearance struck him. The sunken cheeks and the enormous blue eyes, in which hopelessness lingered. The trauma had broken her. The woman had simply begun to live with the situation, and she suffered from the isolation and loneliness. Thomas decided that to help Jacqueline out of her depression, he needed to take an unconventional approach. He discovered that the young woman had always dreamed of traveling to an island where she could enjoy peace. Thomas planned a fantastic trip for her, filling each day with vivid impressions, beautiful views, and exciting activities. Thanks to Thomas' care and attention to detail, Jacqueline gradually began to feel happier, realizing that even in the most challenging moments, someone was always ready to help and support her. But she still loved Peter, and looked at Tom only as a friend. He thought about it, but did not despair. There was hope for reciprocity in his heart. One day, in deep thought, the boy reached the seashore, lay down on the warm sun-warmed sandy shore, and dozed off from fatigue and worries. The shrill howl of the alarm awakened him. He turned his head and realized that the sound was coming from the house. Thomas ran over there. He entered the yard from the back and saw two stout men pushing an exhausted Jacqueline into a car. Then the black Volkswagen squealed its brakes and sped away. Thomas jumped into his car and drove after them without hesitation, leaving the confused squad behind. The chase lasted about 40 minutes until the bandits realized they were being pursued. Then they turned onto a blind forest path, stopped, and exited the car. Thomas also stopped the car and moved toward them. Waiting for him were the same young men who had shoved Jacqueline into the vehicle, and behind them, an elderly man was walking on the stop. He flashed his eyes and told the ambassadors to search Clark, then approached cautiously. "Who are you? Who sent you?" he asked in a low voice. "I'm her husband," Thomas lied. That's strange. That's insane," they say. "Didn't you find any more women? A good-looking guy? Full-fledged, but you're an idiot for lying to me about being a husband. She's the worst." The man laughed loudly. "Are you in a hurry to get to hell? Don't you realize your life hangs in the balance?" "I do, but I will protect it. You will have to kill me along with her." "Oh, I feel scared. We'll be quick. We can right now." He lowered his hand behind his belt, reaching for his weapon. "I understand," Thomas said quickly. "You're doing someone's bidding. Peter Ford hired you. He wants revenge on me to take Jacqueline away from him, to make sure that she belongs to no one but him. He abandoned her, and now that we are together, he's jealous." The man released his hand, stepped closer, and looked into Thomas' eyes. "You're courageous. Take him. We will check it out. We will decide later." He grinned. Jacqueline and Thomas stayed in a damp basement for the rest of the day. The bandits gave their prisoners a plastic bottle of water. The woman kept shaking like a leaf. "Come on, girl. Let me hug you. I'll make you feel warmer. Of course you don't like me, but you have no choice." Thomas walked over to her, put his arms around her, and pulled her against him. She didn't resist, but only silently swallowed her tears. Soon the familiar kidnappers came down to the basement. One put Jacqueline in his shoulders, and the other put his arm around Thomas' waist and dragged him upstairs. They were led across the garden plot to a large mansion. A well-dressed man smoking in a massive armchair in a brightly sunlit room. "Boss, we have brought them in," one of the thugs reported. The man nodded slightly. He looked to be in his late 50s. He looked up and Thomas realized he'd seen him somewhere before. "Your information has been confirmed," he announced in a booming bass. "Put the girl down on a couch," he told his man. "And you, sit down," he'd said to Thomas, "and tell us your view of the situation." He sat down and told the whole story. The representative landlord listened attentively. He squinted his green eyes and told him to say his name. "Clark? You're David Clark's son? The owner of a chain of dental clinics in the state." The man smiled, revealing an even row of white false teeth. "Well, then you're lucky. So lucky. I have a lot of respect for your daddy. He's a brilliant doctor, and he's a successful and advanced businessman. Where is he now, your father?" "Dead. 2 years ago. Now I'm the owner of his fortune." "Too bad. He was a monumental man. Rare. Well, take your wife and get out of here. No one will touch you again. I will still have money." He looked Clark in the eye. "But I don't have a chance to honor and praise a great man." He stood up abruptly and walked toward the exit, then stopped and turned around slowly. "Hey, you better forget about today for your safety," he said to Thomas. Thomas nodded his head, picked up Jacqueline in his arms, and accompanied by the ambassadors, walked to his car, parked just outside the mansion's gates. After a few days, Jacqueline recovered from the shock and began to talk. The girl was strong, but in this situation, experienced a real shock. She felt her helplessness and physical infirmity, and it exceptionally keenly. Jacqueline plunged into deep depression after a series of failures and disappointments. Feeling that the world had lost its brightness and meaning for her, Thomas became a strong support for her and didn't leave her alone to die of longing. He saved her from emptiness and despair and gave her new life, filled with love, care, and support. Jacqueline gradually began to see the light at the end of the tunnel. She learned to enjoy the little things again and appreciate every moment and to believe in herself. Clark became for her a friend, an inspiration, and a radiant island of calm in the stormy ocean of human patience. Together, they overcame all difficulties, and Jacqueline realized that it was in his arms that she found her true happiness. And finally, to their mutual joy, the moment came when Thomas cautiously approached his beloved, holding the box with the ring in his hand. "Jacqueline, I feel every minute with you that our meeting was destiny. Do you want to be my wife?" he asked, listening to his heart pounding. The woman smiled, tears of happiness glistening in her eyes. "Yes, Thomas, I agree to marry you," she replied, hugging him tightly. Joy and hope for the happy future together merged in their embrace. Magnificent sunlight streamed through the glass windows of the ancient church, illuminating every corner and creating a magical atmosphere for Thomas and Jacqueline's wedding. The scent of fresh flowers filled the air as if bringing with it promise of new life and love. The guests watched in rapt silence as two hearts were joined in eternal affection through the sound of gentle music and the solemn words of the priest. At that moment, it seemed as if the time had stopped, so that everyone could fully experience the beauty and majesty of this unique event. After the ceremony, they walked out of the church and were greeted by guests showering them with rose petals. Jacqueline saw her ex-husband's frowning face in the crowd. Peter, felt his heart sing when he saw the new Mr. Clark's radiant and beautiful, getting into a luxury car with his old rival Thomas, sitting contentedly in the passenger seat beside her. The man had never been able to throw and take revenge on. The blossoming smile on his ex-wife face and the sparkle in her eyes seemed to pierce him to the heart, reminding him of his defeat. Suddenly, Peter's throat felt dry, and his eyes blurred with bitter envy and pain. He realized he was now just an observer in someone else's story, but a happy ending where someone else took his place. He glanced at the car with the newlyweds, which was driving them away, onward to a cloudless and joyous life.